Welcome to the Positively No Gambling Podcast, a pro football show that is definitely not about betting. My name is Glenn Fraser. It is Thursday, August 21st, and this is the 2025 team preview for the Minnesota Vikings. Okay, here's how these previews work. We ask two big questions back from the start of the offseason, recap 2024, preview 2025, including any additions, losses, strengths, weaknesses, etc. We take a deep dive into some of the Barnwell advanced stats and trends, look ahead to some leans based on the current spreads during the season, conclude on those two big questions, and then give out a prelim over-under pick for the season win totals. The final over-under picks for every team will be part of the AFC and NFC conference previews posted right before the season starts. With that said, the two big questions for the Vikings are, can they avoid the regression that has derailed past seasons? So with the Vikings, the 2024 season looked a lot like the 2022 season, which was okay, decent expectations, nothing crazy, and going into the year, and then they absolutely blew everybody's expectations by winning all these games. If you remember in 2022, they had all these one score wins. They end up winning the division. They host a playoff game against the Giants and they blow it. And then that led to a kind of a disaster of a 2023 season. So they regressed in all categories after they had a very solid 22 year. How do they avoid that in 2025? Because 24 looked a lot like 22 in terms of how many one score games they won, how many times they were underdogs and won outright, etc. And then the second question is maybe the only question. Is JJ McCarthy a legit starter? Can he take this very talented team that went to the playoffs, that won a million games last year, and keep them in contention, make the playoffs, maybe go on a run? Is he the guy? Obviously, last year with the injury, he didn't play one snap. Worked out fine for them as a team, but now they're looking to him to be their leader. Okay, to recap 24, 14-3, which is wild but true. That was good enough for second in the NFC North because Detroit won so many games. They lost that wild card game to the Rams, and their season was over. And really, the Lions game in Week 18, which they didn't show up, ended their hopes, and then that was their final nail in their coffin was that bad loss to the Rams in the wild card round. They started off hot 5-0. I don't think anybody expected them to beat the Niners or at least beat them as handily as they did. They had a win against Houston. They had a win in Green Bay, which is never easy. So they had a real hot start. It looked like things might calm down. They lost to the Lions and the Rams after their bye, but they went on an incredible run to finish off the season, 9-1. Um, they were 3-3 against playoff teams, which is, nothing to write home about, but also not as bad as we've seen some of these wild card teams who just didn't perform well against playoff teams. They had an easy schedule. That's the thing. Fourth luckiest, eighth easiest. A lot of the teams that they expected to be pretty good turned out to not be very good at all. So they took advantage of that and they overachieved. They probably were closer to an 11 win team and they won 14. 9-1 in the one score games. That's the stat everybody talks about. They were a surprise. But when you look at it, they have incredible talent. So it shouldn't have been that big of a surprise. They have great coaches. They have great skill players. That talent is all pretty much back this year, but there are plenty of regression indicators. Okay, let's look at their offense. In terms of who they lost, I mean, they did lose Sam Darnold, who was their starter for all of last season. They replaced him internally with J.J. McCarthy. They lost Cam Robinson, one of their tackles, to Houston. One of their guards, who's still a free agent, Dalton Risner. They lost Cam Akers to the Saints. Daniel Jones technically was part of their roster. He went to Indy. Johnny Munt, a little underrated, decent tight end. They lost him to Jacksonville. In terms of what they added, they really fortified their interior offensive line, which they viewed as a potential weakness. They added Ryan Kelly from Indy, Will Freeze from Indy. They drafted Donovan Jackson. They didn't have a ton of draft picks, but they used one of those on what looks to be a starting guard in Donovan Jackson. Jordan Mason they added to play alongside with Aaron Jones. He came over. He had that pretty good stretch of play in San Francisco. He was their full-time starter for a while, and he put up some good numbers. So that was a addition of note from the offseason. Besides that, this is pretty much the same offensive skill position players that were here from last year. Jefferson, obviously one of the best receivers in football. Jordan Addison, one of the best sort of wide receiver number two in football. Christian Darrisaw is a blue chip tackle. Brian O'Neill is a very talented tackle. So what was a weakness looks like a strength this year, which is their O-line. Everything's going to come down to McCarthy. He's the X factor. And it's not a make or break or anything. This is definitely one of the league's best and most respected head coaches and offensive minds in KOC. Okay, the defense. A lot of new faces here. They lost Cam Bynum to Indy. They lost technically Stephon Gilmore, though he's not yet to sign. They lost Shaq Griffin to Seattle. Nothing huge in terms of losses. They added Isaiah Rodgers, who's a cornerback from Philly, expected to start. They added D tackle Javon Hargrave. They added D tackle Jonathan Allen from Washington. Eric Wilson. Then they added some rotational guys, nobody of note. Jonathan Greenard is one of the better will linebackers. He's definitely a blue chip. I like Van Ginkel a lot, Blake Cashman a lot. So good linebacking core. Secondary is definitely the X factor here. They re-signed Harrison Smith. They re-signed Byron Murphy. They re-signed Theo Jackson. We talked about losing Cam Bynum, adding Isaiah Rodgers. They become the X factor. If this is a elite unit, you combine that with the already super talented linebacking core, that's the X factor. Um, and these decisions to re-sign these guys versus letting them walk, not re-signing others and letting them walk, that is going to be the make the X factor with this defense. It's not a make or break for anybody. It's one of the league's best defenses. Some question marks. I mean, it's a tough division, which gets us into the schedule. They had an easy schedule last year. It's certainly not an easy one this year. All of the teams in the NFC North have a tough schedule because of their mandatory opponents, and it's a great division. So they're either 25th or 26th ranked schedule, one of the tougher ones. A lot of variance, though, depending on how you measure the schedule. It's either pretty tough or very tough at home. We'll highlight some of the opponents. Cincinnati, people expect to be pretty damn good. Philly is Philly. Baltimore is Baltimore. Washington is Washington. Plus, Detroit, Green Bay, Bears. It's a tough home schedule without a doubt. Um, they're I think the perception of them is that they're incredible at home, which might be the case, but from a covering the spread standpoint, they're not as good as advertised, which could make this tough schedule a real red flag. They could start dropping games that you expect them to win, and then all of a sudden their record is in jeopardy, their playoff potential is in jeopardy, etc. Um, and it's a volatile, like there's so many different machinations of what this schedule could be. So there's really it makes the Vikings a tough team to predict, but also a fun team to talk about. Some of the Barnwell type regression analytics. We said they overachieved by almost three full wins because their close game record was 9-1. Their 23 to 24 win increase, seven more wins in 24 than 23. Everybody and their mother expects this team to regress from 14 wins, but that's actually been adjusted for. So it makes the over-under decision a little bit more difficult than on paper. Because on paper, right now, everything in bold is regression indicator. Um, so this could be viewed as a blind under, and I certainly wouldn't disagree with that, but there's a little bit more to this story. A few more just advanced things. O-line, they had mediocre run protection, but very good pass protection. They they look like they fortified that with their off season, so I think that will improve. The D line was very good at pass rush and run stop. Obviously, blitz heavy, blitz happy, but it really, really worked in 24, and we'll see if that continues in 25. I like them in four games based on the look ahead lines. Week two versus the Falcons, they're only 5.5 point favorite. I would jump on that one now because that could very easily jump up based on week one. Week seven versus the Eagles. I know it's the Eagles, but they're a 2.5 point dog at home. I like them in that spot. Week 15 against the Cowboys, they're only a 1 point road favorite. I don't love the Cowboys. And week 16 at the Giants, I know it's a tough place to play, but come on. 3 point favorite as the road team. By the time we get to week 16, who knows who's going to be quarterbacking for the Giants? Who knows who's going to be coaching for the Giants? This could end up being a 7 point game. They could be favored by a lot more than three. Um, so the regression indicators are real. This could be an exact repeat of 2023 in which they seriously disappoint. But when you look at their over under, it's only 8.5, which I am going to go under. I think this is between an 8 and a 10 win team, which clearly is in the range of an over as well. So it's a tough one. I'll think about this one more. Do I think that they addressed their issues? Is JJ McCarthy a starter? I don't know. Maybe. Um, and is this another, like, can they avoid regression again? Probably. I mean, this probably isn't exactly like 2023 because you don't have a guy like Kirk Cousins starting, and their under has been adjusted down from, 10.5, which you would normally expect from a team that won 14 games the last season, down to 8.5. Um, they would have to regress by 6 wins for this under to hit, which is gives me pause. It's an under right now. I could see myself flip-flopping on this one, which is to say that this is probably a complete stay away unless you have real, real strong opinions of JJ McCarthy or the other teams in this division. I don't know how anyone can call this a solid over or a solid under, but right now I'll park this as a mild under 8.5 because of all those regression indicators. So that wraps up Minnesota. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the New England Patriots, which is another team that has some real momentum building in the off season. Thanks.